Welcome to the Authentically Elisa podcast, Reshaping Business with Integrity, the podcast where you explore how to run your business authentically and with integrity. I'm your host, Elisa Boogaerts, a business coach and launch manager, helping coaches launch their programs and events that align with their business values. Together, we'll uncover the secrets to building a successful business without sacrificing morals, ethics, authenticity, or heart. Let's dive in. All right, so let's dive into today's episode. Today, we're going to be talking about how high-performing women can gain more pleasure, power, and purpose. And today, I have an amazing guest with me, Lynn Bell. And Lynn is a life coach for midlife high-performing women. And she's the founder of the Badass Butterfly Alchemy and creator of the Sensual Alchemy Method. She helps high-performing women in midlife break free from burnout, restore their vitality, and reconnect with their feminine power. Her work blends spiritual depth with real-world results, guiding women to achieve more by forcing less. I absolutely love this. Welcome, Lynn.
Thank you so much, Elisa. Hi, everybody.
Hey. Tell us how you got into this field of work and just why you're so passionate about it.
Oh, how did I get into this field of work? Well, I started off as a massage therapist back in 2002, and I really loved touching people and helping them heal. And I started my own uh, day spa, and I had a massage studio. There were 20 of us working in there. We were doing massage and skincare, and we were teaching astrology and meditation, and we had an herbalist and acupuncture. We did a bunch of stuff in this wellness center, and it was really, really wonderful. But one of the things I noticed was that people kept coming in and they would leave really great. They'd like leave floating on a cloud, but then they would come back, 3 weeks later for another massage, and they weren't dealing with their issues. So they'd come in with all this tension in their bodies, and that's when I decided, like, you know what? I think I want to work with people on a different level. I want to help them resolve these issues. So I became a life coach. So I got my certification, and I took a spiritual certification because I really, really love working with energy and, the idea of God, whatever that means for my clients. And I also like woo-woo. So I like, tarot and astrology, and I like all those things. So I started doing that. And when I had my own midlife crisis, that's when I started working with women who are, age 44 plus, and helping them with the very special challenges that go along with midlife and that age range.
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely a lot of changes happening around it. That's for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah.
Yeah, as one of my as one of a new client wrote in her intake, she says, there are all these shifts that are happening, and there are just so many shifts. Everything is just shifting. She wrote the word shift like 3 times. And I'm like, yep, I understand.
A whole lot going on.
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
So as we, like if we were to relate this to also, how you can deal with these things and like, especially high performing women, a lot of entrepreneurs, I think, are that, right? Very high achieving and they're doing it themselves and all that. So as these women, because they're high achieving, are definitely going to scale their businesses and probably get into like six-figure, multi-six figures, all that kind of stuff. How do you think that they can remain their authentic selves and stay aligned with their integrity as they start to scale?
Well, I'm not sure of why their integrity should come into question as they're scaling. Being honest with you, why would your integrity change just because you're scaling your business? I mean, for my business, I went into it with the spirit of I have to make sure I serve people in the highest way. I have to make sure they have a great experience. I have to make sure I deliver on my promises. For me, in scaling, I have the same mindset, you know. Right now, my container, my membership container, which is, you know, pretty basic, um, you know, it's built to handle 5,000 women. And what I've done was, because I want there to be quality, I want there to be support, I didn't think that I'm going to be the one person who is in this business, you know, but serving 5,000 women. What I've done is I've created a team, and we have group leaders from the community that are working with this, and we're, you know, they're in training to become coaches and this kind of thing. So for me, I would say that the answer is, if you have integrity, just start with that and apply that integrity to everything. And if you can't do it, don't. If you can't do it with integrity, don't do that. Do something else. Figure it out. Pray, say your prayers, talk to your spirit guides, and also get help from, you know,
Mm.
someone who knows. You know, I mentor women all the time in business, and you know, I have women who come to me for help, and what do? I give them the knowledge that I have, and I sit down and we problem solve and we work it out that way. So whatever it is you're doing, get help, and definitely don't sell out your soul for a couple of bucks.
I think that's it. And that's kind of like where the question sort of comes from, is I think that people worry about that, or as I start to scale, or things will change, or, you know, or I'll become like that CEO and I won't be, you know, serving the clients as much anymore because like my business model will change or whatever. And so I think that there is a little bit of a concern with people being like, okay, well, as that happens, like, will I feel disconnected, you know, or how can I, you know, make sure that my business still runs in the way that I want it to, you know, in the way that I did start it, with that integrity and with my authenticity? Because even as you were talking, you know, as we even get into midlife, like get past 44, things start to change. And I feel like, as you know, you go from, say, below six figures to multi six figures and close to seven figures, things are definitely different. And I think you're a different type of business owner. So really staying within that integrity. And I love what you said about that. And so like, it's almost as if we need to be checking in constantly. Is this still aligned? Is this still aligned? And making
Yeah.
decisions from that place.
Yeah. You know, Elisa, it's a really good point that you're making. And I think that that business getting out of control can certainly be a real fear. And you know, I think that's a very reasonable concern to have. One of the things that I do is I still run my business from my bed. So in the morning, I wake up and I do my meditation and I do my shadow work and I do my journaling. And first work on myself, you know, my own heart, my own fears and doubts and anything that's going on. I deal with that. And then I tune into my business and I talk to my higher self, my wisdom about my business. And I look at my employees and I look at my numbers with my spiritual self, right? And I do all this in bed because you know, it's comfortable and I like it.
I love bed. Oh my God. Sometimes I'm like, do I have to get out? I don't want to get out of bed.
Exactly. But definitely spending that time, I use my intuition a lot. I definitely, when I'm up and I'm out in the world, you know, I'm doing my thing, I'm sitting down at my desk, I'm talking to my team, we're planning, you know, we're putting things together, we're analyzing, you know, we're rolling something out. All that stuff requires me to be present and to not be praying, right? I'm not going to stop. Okay, you guys, wait, hold on a second. Let me just get down on my hands and knees right here and just pray. Although I will do that if I need to, you know. But most of the time, that stuff is worked out in the morning, and that
Right.
morning ritual for me is paramount. If I if I ever leave bed without it, I'm starting to run on ego. I am
Mhm.
starting to run on ego. And I don't run on ego. Like I do not miss my morning meditation. I will go to bed. I don't mind going to bed without like a big meditative thing. I don't have to do that. But in that morning, that is when I listen. I'm praying. I'm doing stillness, you know, silence, and I'm just letting the universe pour into me. I'm adding potency to my being, to my presence, and I'm filling myself up.
Yeah.
And when I do that, I'm reminding myself that this is not just my business. This is my higher self's business. This is God's business. And I have to answer to a higher authority. And so
Mhm.
that's why that morning is so very important for me.
Oh, I absolutely love that because I have a similar morning routine, but I don't have that business side to it. And as you're saying that, I'm like, that's because I also meditate in bed, I just I
Yes.
don't even sit up.
Yeah,
But yeah.
same. I
Yeah.
start, my first meditation is done completely lying down, and then I get up and then I do a different meditation. But yeah, there's definitely because I like to do subconscious reprogramming. So I
Mm.
do that every morning. I play my tape. I do so much stuff in the morning. I play a tape. I do shadow work. I make tea.
It all sounds absolutely wonderful, though, and definitely sets you up right. And yeah, I love that tapping into the business as well, right? And then you come from that
Yeah,
amazing place. So you
yeah.
know that, the decisions and everything that you're going through in the day to day, yeah, are aligned. That's amazing.
Well,
Thank
and
you
a
for
lot
sharing
of this is intuition. A
that.
lot of there's so many opportunities for blind spots in business, especially when you're scaling, especially when you're starting to make some money. I mean, honestly, there are blind spots just in handling the finances and dealing with with your accounts and all this stuff, taxes. There are so many potential blind spots. And if I don't have a connection to the divine, I'm going to miss something, and even I'm going to miss something anyway. But it's that connection to source energy and that feeling that I'm always safe because of source. That is what is, I know that if I miss something, it's going to be handled the right way. It's not going to be catastrophic, not the end of the world.
Yeah.
Very trusting. So for me, definitely important.
Yeah. Thank you. So let's
Hmm.
dive into, how high performing women can gain more pleasure, power, and purpose. Give us some tips
Mm.
on that.
Yeah, thank you for that. I love this topic because so one of the one of the things I've discovered is that high performing women tend to be overachievers. Now, if you ask high performing women, they will say something like, "Oh, I can't relate to that. I'm not an overachiever. I'm an underachiever. I'm not doing enough. There are not enough hours in the day. Like I could have done this better. I could have done that better. We didn't quite hit our goal." And I'm like, "Oh, that's overachieving." So that's one of the blind spots for high performing women, that they are actually overachievers. And what tends to happen is these women are incredibly responsible, they're incredibly capable, and they are doing a phenomenal job, and they cannot see it. And they can see it, they can see it to a degree, but then they don't see it to another degree, like they could have done better and there's always
Mm,
more, and then they take on more. And what starts to happen, Elisa, at midlife, when they start getting to 44 years old, all those old strategies that they were using to make things happen in their lives and in the lives of everybody around them, because these are people who do for other people. They do for their job, they do for their business, they do for their husband, they do for their wife, they
mm.
do for their kids, they do for their parents, they're doing for their siblings who are struggling with mental health issues or drug issues, or there's some kind of a social issue that's going on. They're doing for their communities. These are women who are doing a lot, and they manage to get things done. And what tends to happen is they get into go mode and they become the source. They don't know how to relax and
Mm.
let source energy do through them and do for them. So it's almost like a competition between source and their own ego.
Hmm.
Ego's like, I can do that. I can, no, I can do that, God. Don't worry, God. I got this.
Yeah,
You
I
know,
got it.
I got it. You said that like somebody who knows.
Maybe just a little bit.
Okay, all right. So this is the issue when the woman hits age 44, cosmically, right? Astrologically, at the age of 44, the planet Saturn has moved halfway around her chart.
Oh,
So when you're born, Saturn is in one spot. 44 years later, Saturn is opposite the spot it was. That means that there's an upheaval. I'm sorry, I said Saturn. It's not Saturn, it's Uranus.
okay.
Okay, so just making that little correction there, it's Uranus. So Uranus is the planet of revolution.
Oh.
So when it passes that spot, that halfway point around the zodiac, your whole system is saying, I got to change. Things must change. So anything that is not working or anything that's built on a false premise or something that's unstable or something that's just a coping mechanism, the
Mm.
universe can't tolerate it. You can't tolerate it any longer because it was a false foundation. So you are being called, we are being called. When you hit that 44-year mark, you're being called to make a huge change. And um, all the universe is conspiring for you to do that, right? And so we tend to feel pressure. We tend to feel like we can't do this anymore. We start getting burnout.
Mm.
Um, our hormones are starting to shift, so we don't have the same ability to kind of snap back from sicknesses. You know, when we do a workout, like, used to work out and it would feel good, that burn, the muscles are burning. Oh my God. Like, oh my gosh, I'm pumping iron and it
Yeah.
feels so good and my muscles are growing. All of a sudden, when that estrogen starts to deplete, it doesn't feel so good. The joints ache, there's pain, it's just different. Hair starts falling out, skin starts looking gray and tired, all the things start happening. And that doesn't do us well in our minds. It's awful in
Mm.
the mind.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to be aging like that, okay? So, especially for high performing women who, like 98% of the women who come to me, they say, I'm going to push through this. And I just got off the call. Before I got onto this call, I was sitting with one of my clients. I was checking in with her, and she says, I just feel like I have to push through this. We haven't worked together for over a year now. And she says, I'm just going to push through. I'm going to do it this masculine way. And I just want to be disciplined. And I'm like, right, that does not feel right. But of course she gets to do whatever she needs to do. That's her blessing. And hopefully that her way will actually work. That's the thing that matters. But my point is those old strategies stop working.
Mm.
So for me, then there's a new way of doing things because we can get the same amount of work done in half the time. I know we can. I'm living it. And this is what I teach.
That's amazing.
So I've developed something called Sensual Alchemy, and it is how I work with women now. I help them get in touch with their senses. So their sense of smell and taste and touch, and of course that sixth sense, the intuition, using that, coming into stillness and spending more time there instead of doing, more being, more allowing, more receptivity.
Mm, I love that.
I know I just said a mouthful,
Yeah.
Elisa. I said so much.
No, it was so good. I like resonated with all of it. It's like, yeah.
Excellent.
If you could give us like, what's a one thing that they could do to step into that direction to maybe feel that silence or tap into their intuition? What's one thing that you think? someone could take away today and actually go practice?
Yeah. The one thing that I would say is start with like 1 minute of stillness, you know?
Mm.
Just even, not even a minute, because a minute is hard for people. Like a minute is long for people. Be still. So 30 seconds, how about 30 seconds? You put one hand on your heart, you put one hand on your belly, and you just take a deep breath. And you can even set a timer. Overachievers love timers. We love set that timer. It's a
Love
little
it.
gadget, okay? You set the timer, you put your hand on your heart and your hand on your belly, and you just breathe for 30 seconds. And just feel your own presence. One of the reasons why I like to touch my heart is because you can feel the heart energy. You can feel the warmth coming from your heart.
Mm.
And that helps you feel connected to your own body. I mean, the heart energy is just so lovely. But taking that 30 seconds and just giving to yourself is a great way to start. Adding that 30 seconds in multiple times a day is
Yeah.
powerful, really powerful.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
And just check in. I remember one of my coaches, she is really into EBT, emotional brain training. And so she
Mm,
kind of does that. She's like, have check-ins throughout the day. And then, but with emotional brain training, it's kind of like levels of stress. And then depending on your level of stress, you'll do it like just kind of 5 different brain states. And so then you'll do a different exercise, but it's doing that check-in. Like, how am I feeling? Like, just say that 30 seconds, like, what brain state am I in right now? How am I feeling right now? And then from there, take the next action. But
mhm.
she said, some days you get so busy, and then she's like, it's the end of the day and I'm exhausted and I haven't checked in with myself and I want to drink a bottle of wine and leave my husband. And I was like, yep, like you get it. Because she's like, I didn't check
You
in with
need 30
myself the
seconds.
whole, yeah, you need that 30 seconds. Yes, exactly. And so, and then that's kind of, and if you do take even just those 30 seconds a couple of times a day, it will, I think, change the outcome of your day, where at the end, maybe you won't want to drink a bottle of wine and leave your husband.
Right.
So it really does work. So yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that. I love that.
Yeah, sure. I started creating. So right now, normally I live in Paris, but right now I'm in a little seaside town. And it's so incredibly pristine, the air and the sea and the sky. It's just really, really blue. And I've started taking these little video vignettes of just the sea
Hmm.
and the waves or, some birds and things like that. And I'm creating these 1 minute meditations with them. And I'm loving the process, but I'm also loving having that 1 minute away,
Mm.
see some birds flying, to see some flamingos standing in the water, eating. It's so incredibly relaxing.
Yeah. 100%. Oh, this has been so wonderful. Thank you so much. Where can our listeners find you online?
I think the best place to find me is at my website, which is www.badassbutterflyalchemy.com.
Such a great name. I love it. Thank you. And to
Yeah,
finish us off, do you have any final words of wisdom?
my final words of wisdom would be to embrace midlife and to embrace this age and understand that there's an opportunity that's coming through. There's an opportunity for you to um, become your higher self, your greatest potential, and to do it with without forcing, without pushing, but
Mm.
by like allowing your feminine to come through.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you so much. This has been such a wonderful conversation. I loved having you on the show. Thank you so much
Thank
for
you,
being here.
Elisa. Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode. I hope it inspired you to live a more authentic life. I'd love your help in inspiring more people to live authentically. So please follow, rate, and leave a review so we can create a ripple effect of authenticity. Until next time, stay true to you, be bold, and thrive on your own terms. This is Elisa, signing off authentically.